Welcome to the Doo-Doo Divas Smells Like Money podcast. I'm your host, Suzan Chin Taylor, CEO and founder of Creative Raven, the firm that helps wastewater industry contractors and manufacturers unlock the power of digital marketing, AI, and PR to boost sales and opportunities. Whether it's through our online marketing and lead generation programs or providing a fully outsourced marketing department, we are passionate about helping businesses in the wastewater and civil infrastructure sectors not just survive, but thrive in today's digital world. Each episode, I'll be bringing you expert tips and strategies to help you grow and succeed. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Doo-Doo Divas Smells Like Money podcast. Today, we are beginning a two-part series with Howie Honeyman, who is an innovator and product developer at Forward Water Technologies. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Howie.
Oh, thank you much. I'm actually really thrilled to be here as well, Susan.
We're going to broach some subjects that might make people a little uncomfortable because they may have their mindset going in one direction, and we might upset the apple cart in the way that we look at our water resources, hidden water resources from the industrial wastewater treatment side, and also the demand of our growing population and industry. And so I want to begin the show by posing a question to our listeners on the municipal side, is that what they envision to be the source of the next critical source crisis demand on water treatment and supply. Do you believe, and we're talking mainly about industrialized nations, do you believe that this is going to be more from population growth or industrial demand? And what we're going to be talking about today may really, really surprise you. So everybody's talking about AI and these data centers and how they're popping up all over the place. But something that many may not realize is the incredible demand for water sources that these data centers are going to be putting on municipalities and municipal supply sources. And so when we think about this, what are you seeing as, are people just kind of, oh, we'll handle it when it becomes critical, burying their head in the sand, or saying, oh, it's not that bad. It doesn't need that much. What are you seeing in your neck of the woods? Because I know you're based up there in Canada.
It's a very interesting question to pose, and I think it really challenges our framework of how we approach water usage traditionally, if you will, and how we're going to handle it in the future. And what we've traditionally done is keep up with the pace. As industry needs more water, as municipalities grow because their industries are growing because of the industry, bring the water in to service that. And I think a couple of things are challenging that, right? And one is we're bringing in new industries, like you mentioned, AI. It was not there before. It is here now. And it's rapidly expanding in the way that it has been invasive within all our lives, because AI was something, I think, if we even think about 12 months ago on an individual level,
No.
AI is now present everywhere. It's omnipresent where it wasn't even a year ago. And what is behind the scenes on that, and what people don't see, although it is being brought up in the media, is data centers. And the data centers require immense amount of water. And AI is going to continue to grow. The demand for that water is going to continue to expand. And so you're going to see industry really taking the lead bite out of the municipal supply of water that's available. And that's kind of the thing that I've seen change. We're a tertiary wastewater treatment company. We look at those types of opportunities, and we see those opportunities just growing and growing and growing because water is under intense demand from the industrial sector. I think it will be followed by population demand because the industries will grow, but I think it's going to be led by industrial growth for reasons like chip making, EV manufacturing, battery production, as well as the data centers for AI. All of these things are water intensive. And I mean, even, certain electric car companies in Germany have had challenges with their battery production facilities and the water uptake they're taking from their locales.
So what's interesting is, we think we think of North America. Oh, we've got this unlimited supply of water. But you mentioned
Mm.
something that kind of shocked me because we always think of water being cyclical and it's the same amount on the planet. And you mentioned something about that there's a certain percentage of permanent water loss on the
Yeah.
planet every year. Tell us more about that because I don't think that's something that many people are even aware of that happens.
Yeah. So, I mean, the traditional pathway for destruction of water, if you will, from a heavily compromised industrial stream, not typically seen in municipal themes, although apparently there's some bad actors every once in a while, um, is burn, bury, and boil. And the bury part is deep well disposal. And the deep well disposal, they've been active for decades and decades. They are both for chemical contaminated water as well as oil and gas production.
Right.
And it really it's quite exactly what it sounds like. You drill a hole into a reservoir where there's a basin and it's deep enough that it can hold the water, but far enough away from the surface that it won't contaminate surface water, and you pump water down there. And that water is really not designed to come back to the surface for 5,000 years, according to the United States Geological Survey. So there's a little bit of trust going on there. But
There you go.
for our purposes, it's gone forever. So that water actually becomes removed from the water table and from the water cycle itself.
Hmm.
And the volumes are fantastic. On an annual basis, just in the United States, it's roughly the flow of the Niagara Falls for 30 full days every year is removed from the face of the earth on a permanent basis. And sure, we've got a lot of water in our ocean evaporating, going into the water cycle, and I appreciate that. But we've made assumptions like, oh, we could never pollute that before in our history of our species and made mistakes. So in my head, I think there's a good reason to get on top of that if you can. And there really is a really thin sliver of potable water that is on the surface, and you really need to preserve that and manage that in a way that's consistent with our ability to function on the face of the earth, right? So so I think that loss of water coupled to the growing industrial demand really requires us to reframe how we approach water and water reuse. Um, Traditional methods of disposal really aren't going to serve us well that long. And yet I was recently reading in the oil and gas has been putting produced water down in industrial waste holes. They're now seeing seismic activities. That's been true for fracking for a long time. But
Right.
there's also the leaching of the salt table. The salt table is becoming so large, it's actually spilling out of these areas and now going into, freshwater contamination. So we need to be smarter with how we deal with our long-term produced water and industrial wastewater.
So this brings us to the point of something that you brought up, and I think this was the thing that really wanted me to bring you on the show was you made the comment of we need to start treating water like infrastructure.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
that's
it was a really neat, way to kind of think about it in that it's or thinking of water like was the other term used like capital equipment.
yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, what does that mean? How do you treat something that is, I guess, fluid? Because we think of infrastructure as being a building,
Bricks
our
and mortar,
underground
yeah.
utilities, our pipelines, our structures, our roads and bridges. That what do you mean by treating it as infrastructure?
So yeah, we're adamant about that here at Ford Water. And let me start from the top down, I guess is the other way to look
Sure.
at it. We see water as being a valuable piece of capital equipment. And that's how we want to get to. We want to get to a situation where a factory is built, and in the same way it has doors and windows and pipes and machines and whatever, it has a water charge. And that water charge is simply reused as a tool, literally as a tool over and over and over again and recycled within the facility for the lifetime of that facility. So maybe that's a little bit audacious, or maybe not. I'm not going to argue one way or the other, but that's what we see as the future. And I'll argue that in an advanced in the future, right? I don't think we're going to have to face that reality that there is a limited supply of usable water. The population has grown to a certain point. The industries that serve that population have gone fantastically huge. Everything from diversified or dispersed nuclear generators using cooling water to solve the energy needs, to things like ongoing AI, every city having an AI center outside its own, because everybody relies on it so often, that you're really going to have to take a look at fresh water and now treat it as that piece of infrastructure, as a tool, as something that the company who's building whatever facility has to
Mhm.
purchase, like they purchase bricks and mortar to build their building, they purchase machines to do whatever process that they're going to take care of, but then they have to go and purchase their water and reuse it over and over again. And to repurchase the water is going to break their economic cycle, right? And so
Yep.
that's kind of the vision that we have. I think we're seeing data points tracking to that. Um, I've we've been developing our tertiary water treatment for osmosis process, advanced water treatment, for a number of years. When I first started this business, it was nothing out there to drive interest except could you save money on disposal? And now reuse is coming back into the equation, or coming into the equation, as much as disposal or reuse or minimizing waste. Can you produce clean water that I can use over and over again, right? And that's what's changed. And I think that's the breadcrumb that's leading us to our ultimate goal of getting water to be infrastructure, to be a tool to be reused over and over and over again. And it's basically, once you can recycle it, it won't wear out, and it's really quite an effective tool. You just need the processes to allow you to recycle it effectively and cost effectively. So
Right, because many cities have put in water reclamation facilities, or it's part of their wastewater treatment, where they're reclaiming some of the water and using it for irrigation or for parks, or what
yeah,
other uses. Obviously, not drinking water, but now we're turning to look. Let's go beyond wastewater at a municipal level and look at it from other users, more on the industrial side, because this is something that you're bringing to the forefront, is
yeah,
that this is an untapped resource, not just for the facility itself to reuse its own water, but to put less strain on the municipal delivery and supply chain. Or maybe if there's excess, that potential of giving it back, like we put in solar on our roofs. What we
mhm,
don't use goes back to the grid. It's that circular thing. And so, it's what unfortunately, a lot of these things, are people incorporating these things. It doesn't really happen until a crisis takes place, where, oh my gosh,
true.
how are we going to get the water? And so I would ask you, do you think that that's how this water story is going to play out? Or do you think that right now, as we're talking, industrial facilities are starting to think ahead, that we're going to have a water crisis and it's going to be sooner rather than later? And like you were saying earlier, that if they have to pay more for their water, a lot of it getting wasted, that cuts into the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's a lot to peel there. There's a lot of societal issues I think you're touching on. So
Yeah,
a couple things.
absolutely.
I think the municipal activities where water reuse is being used several times before it's finalized in some sort of end game. That's one of the breadcrumbs that I think you could point to say that water reuse is becoming much more understood, much more appreciated. Are we going to get there as fast as we need to? No. I unfortunately see, and I'm usually much more of an optimist. Um, but I do see crisis being the motivator here eventually, and we've already seen a few cases of that arise. There was an issue in South Africa a number of years ago where Cape Town ran out of water briefly, or got very close to their municipal day zero. What struck me about that was everybody watched the slow march to that situation. Everybody kind of did things that they should do, but then all of a sudden it hit, and you're seeing senior citizens trying to carry 20, 5-gallon pails of water down the street to get home, and it just doesn't. It instantaneously hit a wall of societal problems, right? And I fear we're going to see that type of issue arise. We're seeing some sort of issues in Tehran. Apparently, there's other things going on, but they've got a water issue in a city of 10 million people with a relatively developed infrastructure. Um, we're going to see that in the industrialized world, maybe in Asia first, I don't know, but we will see it. We do live in North America. It's the land of water. We always can throw a pipe, we think, in another lake somewhere, but that'll hit us eventually. Well, and that I think crisis is going to end up driving us. And unfortunately, the immediate reflection of the absence of usable water in a municipal society, it's a disaster immediately
Oh, yeah.
within hours, right? And so that's the unfortunate situation. I think there'll be some, we're part of that solution pathway. There are people out there, there are other people other than us as well, um, knowing or seeing this as an opportunity, but also a need coming forward. And so there is some level of preparation. But I think crisis will ultimately push us over the edge in terms of commitment to long-term sustainable water reuse on at a municipal sort of scale.
Now, one of the things that I wanted to make very clear to the audience is that, we're going to deep dive into this on our second episode here, is that what you are offering in your technology is not on the municipal side.
Correct.
It's before it hits the municipal side. So it's for those industrial users that, may be listening, but you were saying about tertiary treatment. And so just to get like a little tease and maybe set us up for this next episode, what type of industries is this type of reuse where they can make it a circular loop, not put so much demand on their municipal supplier, or maybe be able to have water that is safe for reuse, that this is applicable for, that
Yeah.
something like this was previously never available to them.
So we're focused on kind of with the theme of the discussion here, solving the problem before it becomes a problem.
Mm.
And what we're looking at is we have the ability, or we're developing a technology that can treat heavily compromised industrial brine wastewater. So this is wastewater that really has no solution other than the burn, bury, and boil pathway. And this isn't small volumes. So this is water that's been filtered, it's been treated, it's gone through reverse osmosis, but it now has become so concentrated and contaminated. There's no feasible technology out there to take that water and extract the majority of the volume as potable, clean water that can go for industrial reuse and actually minimize the waste that would never end up in the municipal system. So it takes out all of those contaminants that would ever end up in the municipal system and takes them away. And we minimize what goes for final disposal, whether it's incineration or actually deep well disposal. And we return that water back for industrial reuse. So what we're doing is we're capturing this, what would become fugitive water, into the municipal system with those contaminants, and we are reclaiming the vast majority of it so it can go back into industrial production, right? And I think that's one of the capstones you need on the industrial side to minimize the pressure on the municipal side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really solving the problem before it becomes a problem, as opposed to accepting the problem because you don't have an alternative.
And it's interesting that you said that it's removing contaminants that normally would have been in that stream when it releases down to the mainstream that has to be treated at the wastewater treatment plant. So it's kind of solving two problems. It's
Right.
solving treatment at the wastewater plant, and then it's lessening a burden of new water having to come in from water distribution.
Yeah,
And
and yeah, and it ties into all the regulatory. So, if you've got a contaminant and it can go into the municipal wastewater stream because that is what the municipal has decided at 5 ppm, okay, fine. Maybe you pay a surcharge or whatever it is, right? And but what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate it from that pathway by taking at 5 p.m. We would take the vast majority of that volume and make clean water that could be reused and send a tiny fraction. Think 2 liters out of 1,000 liters is what we're going to compress it to, and that's that final 2 liters that goes for final treatment, right? Or it could, in some cases, we're showing that you can remediate that. There's valuable materials in there that are now economical to recover because they're concentrated enough. And so in some cases, even the contaminant material can go for recycling.
wow, that'd be good news to
Yeah, yeah.
treatment plant operators, is less that they're going to have to deal with. And so to wrap up this segment before we talk more deeply about the actual technology and its role, it says if there is one thing that you would want to get out in front of municipal leaders who are thinking about this or saying, you know what, maybe we do need to start planning for this. How do we deal with our industrial customers? What do we need to do as water providers to prepare for these burdens that are coming? What would it be? What would your advice be to them?
Yeah, in a perfect world, what my advice to them would be is build a toolbox of ancillary treatments that you can bring to your industrial users or your industrial customers and say, hey, you guys have this problem. We know you have this problem and we have to solve it because we can't handle it in the municipal system or we don't want it in the municipal system. Here's 3 or 4 validated tools that you may be able to look at to solve your problem. And if they can bring that toolbox to their industrial customers, I mean, I'm going to be clear. That's great for us. I'm totally paving the way for our technology, but other tools as well, because there are, well, water's a cagey issue. You need multiple tools to solve all the problems.
Right.
And if the municipalities can bring in, hey, this is a validated tool that we looked at that might be able to solve your problem. Please look at this, right? Even if it's just based on the technology, here's 3 providers of forward osmosis. Choose choose the one you want to follow with. I understand there has to be some compliance there, but that would be my perfect world. But also the advice to the municipalities, if they could bring known technologies to their end users, they get the comfort that their end users or their industrial clients are using validated technologies. That's good for the municipality. It stops that contaminant from going into the municipal system. And the industrial user gets some sort of confidence that they can follow these technology pathways and get to where they need.
Well, Howie, thank you. Given us a lot of food for thought. And it kind of sets us up perfectly for the next episode to talk about more how this technology can be applied and what it actually does.
Sure.
So for those of you who have been tuning in that like the concept of this, really interested in maybe exploring water reuse further, whether you are an industrial wastewater, pretreatment operator or plant manager or a municipality that has to work with a lot of industrial customers in your community, I encourage you, reach out to Forward Water. And what is the easiest way for them to get in touch with you, Howie, and learn more about what you are doing here, not just in Canada, but in the United States and really around the world?
The best way, of course, is follow through on our website. But if there's an urgency or need to get in touch with me directly, my email, perhaps we could share that at the end of the show. Happy to take emails, and my phone number is also out there too. And that's a good way to touch base with me too. Use the phone.
Right. Well, we will make sure that is in the show notes. And that website address for Forward Water is
www.forwardwater.com.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Howie, and I look forward to continuing our conversation. And thank you, audience, for tuning in. Please stay tuned for the continuation of this conversation all about water. So thanks again. And until next time, keep it flowing. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you're ready to take your marketing to the next level and start increasing sales and opportunities for your business, reach out to us at Creative Raven. We're here to help you thrive in the digital landscape. Visit creativeraven.com or click the link in the show notes below to schedule a call and learn how we can support your growth. If you enjoyed the insights on today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so you'll never miss an update. Until next time, keep growing and keep it flowing.